What is good, everyone? Welcome to the entertainment from the 573 podcast. Hope you all are doing well on this edition of the show. It is our Harry Potter series continuing with part two, talking about Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, and Half-Blood Prince. Really excited for this one. And joining me and talking about this one, now that he's done asking Harry very calmly, why did he put his name in the Goblet of Fire? It's Peter Lewis.
I mean, he's going up against Batman. Why would you take those odds? It's bad. No, even Vegas is saying it's not a good odd. The guy's
Yeah,
name is in the movie, and Vegas is giving him what 5,000 to 1. Not good.
yeah, that was let's be real. That one was a personal request by one Rebecca Gangamella right there, as she said, like we got to mention. It's like, oh well, you don't know how soon I'm going to mention that right off the bat here. So there you go, Rebecca. Yeah, we are going to be talking about that infamous line with Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince. So really excited about that. Again, like we did on part one, we're doing this while Tennessee's playing a football game. So again, if I continue to look on over, that's why. And also, we're doing this post Vandy beating Alabama, uh, of all things to happen. Uh, Peter,
But
this is surprising.
unlike last time, I have something to be distracted by. I keep forgetting WWE pay-per-views on Saturday now, so I am currently looking up at Bad Blood from Atlanta, Georgia. So it
I
might be
mean,
a little, we'll try to we'll try to keep it on par, but there might be a reference here and there if we can work something in.
yeah. All right, there we go. Tennessee first down. All right, there you go. See, I'm already distracted here, only a couple minutes in. Yeah, so part two, I told Peter before we start recording, I was really excited about doing this one for a couple different reasons. And with these three in particular, and Tennessee's got called for penalty. There we go again.
Ah.
With these three movies, there's an interesting dynamic here with them in the books because I think you take a look at Goblet of Fire and Half-Blood Prince. Those two books are beloved by everybody, lauded as being either their favorites or being among the best of the series by far.
Mhm.
And then you take a look at Order, the book Order of the Phoenix. A lot of people have it lower down their tier list because of, Harry and, kind of his, anger issues that he has. And just like, I don't like him in this book. He's acting like an angsty teenager.
Mhm.
Conversely, you look at the movies, I think there's a lot of opinions that Goblet of Fire, Half-Blood Prince are probably people's least favorite of the movies because of, the source material and consider them a lesser than. And then you look at Order of the movie, I've seen a lot of people really like Order of the Phoenix and say that, despite it being, I think I said it was the shortest of the movies. I think it's the second shortest, actually. The longest book being the second shortest movie and it being good still. That's really amazing. Peter, kind of take us through your journey with these specific movies. Where do you have Goblet, Order, and Half Blood Prince?
It's from a from the overall story standpoint. These are kind of like the more critical ones in a lot of ways because this is kind of going to get you from the fun beginning when they were basically kids to the ending. Like this is the hump. This is the hump you got to get over to have the satisfying conclusion. And yeah, I was fairly surprised because when I went, because again, like we said, I don't want to repeat last time. I had seen these films. You know, whenever they became available to rent from the blockbuster. Rest in peace, King. As always, I had almost little memory of, especially Order of the Phoenix. I completely forgot what happened. Half Blood Prince, pretty much the same way, except I knew something was going to happen with Snape. I just forgot what. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened. And Goblet, I just remember. Oh, that's where Voldy comes in, and also Batman, a Batman origin. So I will say, with having almost zero memory, I thoroughly enjoyed all of them, and I would actually say Order is kind of a sneaky, probably one that should be on the higher. list in terms of rankings. I think a lot of good happens there. We get a lot of development that pushes Harry from kind of being a backseat passenger to actually like being worthy of the namesake of this series.
Mhm.
We introduced, Voldemort is now fully in control. We're getting a lot of his Death Eaters. We get Bellatrix, the goat, and just from an acting standpoint, of course they're getting better. Uh, Everybody involved is getting better or more stable at it. So yeah, these three films, in terms of bridging the gap of like, oh, these are fun kids films to what's going to be, kind of a miserable, dark slog in a good way that the Hallow films will do. This is something that does a good job at. Okay, we're still having fun, but let's pick up and get to business.
Yeah, you made a really good point. I've heard it brought up too about it kind of like leapfrogging Harry kind of over Dumbledore in his way of being the leader of this war, of this anti-Voldemort movement. And I think Half-Blood Prince kind of in the book kind of did a good job of that. So you mentioning Order kind of doing that for you, that kind of just shows you like, okay, there's a little bit of that in there of him like just like ready to take that power. And I feel like that's a common story trope. You have the mentor and the mentee, and then the mentor passing it on to the mentee, and just like, hey, this is your responsibility now. I definitely kind of felt that way with Half Blood Prince, where in the cave it seemed like it had passed on from, Dumbledore to Harry. But, yeah, I think, I take a look at these films now, having, some years of separation after seeing them. I do get where people are coming from. I do think Order out of these 3 is probably my favorite, but I just think the dynamics between the books and the movies really spicy here, and that's kinda why we're here because you're a non-book reader. I'm a book reader, and I've read all of them multiple times, and so it's gonna be an interesting dynamic talking about these films and how they compare with the books and kinda some differences there. So I'm really excited to kinda get into this, and of course, we're gonna get into with Goblet, and like you said, there's a lot of darkness that happens over these films, and this is really kinda where it brings it forward. Prisoner of Azkaban kind of had some of that and really got that train going. No pun intended with Hogwarts Express right there, but it really got that going into these 3 films and really picked up, especially with Goblet of Fire, because it's a really dark movie, especially at the end, because you got the most evil dark wizard coming back to life in a full body form, and it's just kind of terrifying there at the end. So there's a lot of action in this film. There's a lot of, like you said, darkness. There's also that, angsty teen romance that's kind of boiling on the surface, especially with Ron and Hermione there. I kind of feel like it's more surface level here than it is in the books. It's kind of more subtle. So it just feels like there's a lot of things here with Goblet, but there is a lot of stuff here. In fact, I think Goblet of Fire was the first book to be considered to have 2 films and be split into 2 parts.
Hmm.
So and it makes sense, I think, just looking back in the book, and I'm looking at it right now, it's a very dense book. It's not as dense as Order, but, like, it's a lot. I feel like at this point in the world with the Triwizard Tournament, the World Cup. It's just like a boiling point where all these things from the Wizarding World are just showing up, and it's just like en masse. It's just like there's a whole lot here in the Harry Potter story up to now, and this is the middle book. We're not even we're halfway through this thing. So it really kind of as far as the book and the movie standpoint, I'd like the book a whole lot more than the movie, but I see where the movie lands for people that haven't read the book like yourself, where it is fun. There's a lot of action in here. There's a lot of fun set pieces. Like again, the Triwizard Tournament, the World Cup, seeing all that, seeing a little bit of Quidditch on a bigger scale, and then you get to see the Yule Ball. You just get all these different set pieces, so I definitely get why.
It feels like this one did a lot more for the idea of there's lore in this universe. It's not just Hogwarts. Like, oh, there's other magical houses, which maybe at one point in the other three films they had made a reference to it, but there's a huge difference between saying and doing. So actually, to have two different houses come in, basically show there's this World Cup for Quidditch, and show that there's this contest for the boarding school kids. Yeah, again, we're just really fleshing out a lot of this, and I mean, there's more Ministry of Magic stuff going on now. Yeah, it just seems like okay, now there's a universe here. It's not basically where the comparison for this podcast history, of course, is the MCU. Iron Man is a very self-contained universe. Nothing's really going on around it other than what we know in real life. Compared to Iron Man 3, there's a whole new backdrop for it now. It's basically a night and day experience from Azkaban to Goblet of
Yeah.
Fire, even though Azkaban kind of went into a little detail about the prison system, but not really. Maybe in the book, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it really kind of went into more detail about that, but yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that, and just like looking at how the world is right now, it's just kind of crazy to see where it got to at this point here in the middle book. And then of course at the end, not to, jump ahead of over the entire film, but you have Voldemort coming back. And I think as a book reader and I think as a movie watcher, we're all kind of shocked because it's like, oh snap, the true big bad of the series pops up here in the middle of the series, kills somebody, and it completely makes his presence known, comes back. I think honestly, you would probably expect it to happen, I don't know, maybe book 6, right before the
Mhm.
lead up, or it happens in book 7, like maybe they're trying to prevent him from coming back and he's getting close at the end and they prevent it, or he does come back, but it's at the very end. So I feel like
Mhm.
it's it feels like a different type. It feels weird to have it be like that and just like have the big bad pop up here in the middle of the series. Like, hey, I'm here and I'm gonna be a presence here for the next few books, next few movies, and really cause some damage everywhere in the wizarding world. I feel like that was a big thing there. But yeah, not to jump over the entire movie with Voldemort coming back. Spoiler alert. Uh but you have this whole movie here.
Well, actually, Voldemort's a very interesting point because he's on the head of the first dark arts professor in the first one. The second one, he's basically being reincarnated in his teenage form, and then he's not a factor in Azkaban at all.
Mm-mm.
Like just maybe some passing mentions this, but like no, that is a serious black movie in all regards. So like this one, when it opens with the nightmare sequence that we think Harry's having, where it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna get back on track. I wonder how he's gonna reinstall himself in this film. Like, how will he be incomplete this time? Because so far we've seen him not uh, as basically dying, having a leech on somebody, or having to be basically a kind of like almost a ghost in a way, like he was in his teenage self. So for him to at the very end to oh my god, Rhea Ripley's on screen, I'm losing it. uh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, for him to basically just like completely show up in his full form at the very end here when they basically trick everybody using the cup. It's like, oh, okay, that's an interesting change.
Yeah, you mentioned that early scene where you have the nightmare and you
Mhm.
really kind of get into Harry and him having that connection with Voldemort right there. You also have David Tennant with playing Barty Crouch Jr. and Wormtail there, which in the book, I'll tell you what, with Goblet and with Half-Blood Prince in the books, they have these chapters where you're fully into Harry's head in these later books, but then they take a couple moments to go elsewhere. Like, you're not supposed to see this. Like, Half-Blood Prince, there's a couple chapters there where you're not with Harry, where you're with uh the Muggle Prime Minister and the Minister of Magic, and then in the second chapter, you're with Snape, Draco's mom, and Bellatrix. So it's really kind of nice that we have here in this first chapter here, where you're kind of getting to see like, oh snap, we have Voldemort here. He's not fully formed, but he's talking about making a comeback here, and he's getting super close. I will say, having Barty Crouch Jr. there, it does. I guess maybe from a movie standpoint, I guess it makes sense that you put him in there. But honestly, as a book reader, remembering it, I didn't know who in the world was, that guy that was gonna help Voldemort. I didn't really know who it was. And so it was really kind of surprising that they kind of went that route and just kind of saying like, yeah, here he is, but I guess that is to help the movie audience. And also that tongue thing that he has where he just sticks out his tongue, that's kind of a telling thing too. And that might be a movie type of thing as well, where, it's kind of a tell and you're kind of basically telling the audience like, hey, this is who it is. So I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it works a little bit better in the books, but in the books, I think, and also Barty Crouch, he doesn't really show up in the try at the Quidditch World Cup like that. It's completely different. There's a complete different side plot there where he's under the Imperious Curse there, and there's a whole house elf involved where in which Harry thinks it's Dobby, and it's like not a good look for Harry, just thinking all house elves look the same right there, with Dobby. But there's a whole thing there. So I don't really know about him coming into the intro here and just being like, yeah, he's here, but I guess it does help the audience out a little bit. But the try not the Tri Wizard, I get that in the Quidditch World Cup confused, but the Quidditch World Cup, it looked absolutely insane, and it just looked like a whole lot of fun. Just reading about it and just like seeing, and it's kind of like Harry, my guy. You don't have the awareness here to think that there's many other wizarding schools, many other wizarding people around the world here. Like, come on. I know you're 14. You probably don't have the awareness that you need to, but it's like, come on. There's a whole bunch of Wizarding World people here, and just have that game there and see the stadium, which the stadium looks insane in the movies. Like, could you imagine watching a game in that stadium? Like, holy crap. And then you have Victor Crumb, who is basically that world's LeBron James, kind of, you know?
I love a movie that begins with just some casual terrorism.
Oh man. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's in the books, what I remember is like everything happens, and for some weird reason, they cut in just like everybody is gone. Like, what happened to everybody? Did everybody just safely make it out? But there's like muggles being tortured there in the book, and then I think they run to a forest and they see Draco there, and they're kind of like, your dad. I wonder if your dad's a part of this. And I was like, well, I wouldn't tell you if he was, would I? And it's like, guys, just nobody's watching. Just beat the crap out of Draco here for a real second. Nobody's watching. Just freaking, beat the absolute crap out of him. Teach him a lesson.
You're not in Hogwarts. You don't gotta worry about points being taken away from your house.
No, you don't have to worry about Snape walking around the corner and just docking 500,000 points from Gryffindor. You're good. You don't have to worry about it. But yeah, no, getting to Hogwarts in the Triwizard Tournament, and you have these three different schools with the Durmstrangs and Beauxbatons, and then you have Hogwarts involved, in which Peter, in the books, the clear reason why they don't have this tournament anymore is because the death toll got too high. That's like,
You
Hogwarts,
know,
safest place on Earth. Yeah, we're bringing back the Triwizard Tournament that had a high death toll, and that was the reason why we got rid of it in the first place.
this is what I love about this film series. What I love most about this film series, like they're just putting children in just completely mortal danger and just not caring at all. Like especially in the second film when you had the basilisk running around, even though at that point they didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah.
The idea that it was a debate if they would have to close the school down. It's like, are you kidding me? Yeah, you should. Should probably send in the SAS just to help.
Well, like, well, nobody's died this time, so we're gonna wait until somebody has. Then we'll shut it down.
I love that spirit. It's like we survived this far.
Well, it's like, yeah, you had this tournament here that has this high death toll, and you also make the notice that no people under the age of 17 can participate. So yeah, yeah. Also, you just like people in here. I forgot to mention this, but people's hair in this movie kind of wild here. Just like everybody's hair is all over the place, and that, I guess that maybe happens when you don't go and get a haircut in the Wizarding World. You just wait too long, and you're just like, yeah, you know what, screw it. We're just gonna leave it be. But yeah, the Triwizard Tournament, you have Pattinson here, which think I want to say it's his first role. And you want to talk about something that's aged pretty well is the man himself, because after this he got Twilight, and then now he's Batman. So now he is good to go. He's gonna film Batman 2 here soon, which we're hyped about. But I mean, talk about a launching off point. You're in for one film, you die at the end. Spoiler alert again. But yeah, it's a okay, Tennessee just got sacked. Okay. But yeah, it's really kind of amazing to see the starting off point here in this franchise in the middle of it. He dies and here he has a pretty good career. I dare say it, a better career than any of the young people that are in this film. No, not downplaying what Daniel, Rupert, and Emma have done, but I mean, it's freaking Batman. You can't get much
Yeah,
better than that.
I from his filmography, I was like, is that true? It's like, yeah, literally, the only thing he had was a film the year before, but it was in a deleted scene, so it literally doesn't count. So yeah, his first role in film, at least, I'm not sure about television, I don't care, was yeah, Goblet of Fire. And yeah, I mean, again, very very impressive career because you look again. I know it's so easy to look at Twilight and just think like, oh, that's all he ever was. More so for the people who didn't know what he was doing before Batman, just thinking he was the Twilight guy. But he has a very respectable filmography. I mean, Remember Me, Water for Elephants, what was that good one? Lost City of Z is a good one. Good Time, obviously. He does a lot of good stuff, even around the time he was doing Twilight stuff. He's a very talented actor, and range is the word the kids love nowadays, and he's got it.
Yeah, he definitely does, and he was good in this film. He was really good, in this first
But yeah,
big time role.
but to that point, yeah, he really had a more very impressive career compared to the other three. Now I know some things are beyond like Poor Rupert kind of got typecast and kind of refused to just take roles, so he's kind of like half retired. Radcliffe went the Elijah Wood route. She's like, well, I'm super famous and rich now. I'm just gonna act in the absolute weirdest and most wildest things I can find,
Yeah.
i.e., a corpse that farts. And Emma Watson, had some respectable roles, but she's kind of taken the more writer activist approach. So I think she's kind of like on hiatus at the moment. I don't think she's done anything since Little Women, unless I'm just completely missing. But yeah, of all the people here, it's the Batman who's still kicking it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he's still the only one, and he's got a big time superhero role to kind of really kind of elevate himself now. But yeah, no, he was great in this film, and you just see the difference between him and Harry, and just like it's kind of it's kind of emphasized like that in the book, just like how much older they are, but just by like how much more magical knowledge that one has over the other. Like I remember in the book, Harry had to learn a lot of different spells, and in some cases, spells that if he didn't learn would have really probably got him killed. Like I remember he had trouble with the Accio spell, the summoning charm. And if he doesn't get that in the graveyard, he's donezo. You know, Voldemort ain't going to stop hunting him there. He's going to continue to find him and try to kill him. So I really think, this film, while there is some charm to it, I mean, you have all the romance stuff with Ron and Hermione and them struggling to ask for dates at the Yule ball, for the Yule Ball. Yeah, the whole scene with Ron and McGonagall and teaching how to dance. And the twins giving him crap for it, which I mean, that's relatable. Who of us have not done that?
Sixth grade gym class got to do dancing, and that was my unfortunate. So I was like, oh no, I feel for you, Roop. Also,
Which
we are a week late on the podcast, so obviously, rest in peace to the great Maggie Smith. Great
absolutely,
actress, of course.
absolutely. Just to drop a dime in here, Downton Abbey. I've seen that show a lot. She was in it, and I swear they
Really,
just gave her the best, the funniest lines, and just like, we're just going to give you this, have fun. It just felt like that with each and every episode she was on. So, yes, I hate it because McGonagall, she's a ride or die. She's
oh
very
yeah.
stern, but she's a ride or die type of character. Like will stick up for you. She'll stick up for Harry every time. Um,
But she will be realistic, and when she sees a trio, be like, "Why is it always you three? Why is it always got to be you three?" So it's one of my favorite lines in this movie. Just her dead delivery of just like almost like unsurprised but also annoyed at the same time. Like, how does this keep happening?
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the Triwizard Tournament itself, it really is kind of action packed. The dragon, I think the Horntail looks pretty cool. Um, did pretty well with that. That of course like pre Game of Thrones and all that stuff. The second task, which I don't know how people are expected to watch because it's all underwater. But I mean, that looked pretty compelling with all the different ways they were using magical abilities. And then in the third task, it's different in the book. In the book, they have all these different challenges. And I think there's like a Sphinx that gives riddles. There's like boggarts from Prisoner of Azkaban, the mentors, all these different creatures. And here it's just like, I don't know, aggressive gust of winds. I don't know. And the maze changing. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the third task could have been a little bit better. There's not as much serious because there's a little bit serious in the book and where he really establishes himself as that type of father figure type of role here and really establishes that going forward, in which you really feel hurt by the end of Order that he's gone. So
Mhm.
I feel like not having anything serious. There's a couple other characters, Ludo Backman, who is all into sports and all into gambling and is in debt to the goblins, which which I don't know. I feel like that could have been funny for some people, just like, oh, I get this. This guy's in debt to the goblins and he's trying to make it up by trying to fix a tournament and make sure Harry wins it. But you miss him, you miss a couple other elements. The pensieve, which is massive for this one and going forward in Half-Blood Prince, and you get to see those memories and you get to find out that's really when you find out, okay, connect the dots. Barty Crouch Jr. is actually Moody, but there's a couple other different steps that it takes to get there in the book. But the memories looked really cool, and you find out, what happened to Neville's parents, kind of, which we'll get into that a little bit with Order. I feel like there could have been a little bit more there later on, so I guess that's an Order thing. And yeah, I mean, this you have a teacher here in Moody, speaking of him, even though it's a Death Eater. In the books, he does actually teach him a lot. He actually helps Harry become a better wizard, which is like, oops, as a Death Eater,
Ooh.
you don't want to make your enemy that much better to go against your master, It's kind of like fumbling right there. But you teach all these illegal spells, the three worst things you can do a wizard, are like, uh it again, Hogwarts safest place on earth, and like, no, these kids need to know what it's like to be put under these illegal spells, except the killing curse for obvious reasons, but let's just put them under the Imperious curse. But yeah, this movie, I think, I feel like there's a lot of stuff I would have really liked to see as a book reader, just to make an appearance and really kind of enhance it. And that's kind of why I'm excited to see this in TV format, because I feel like you can really do a whole lot more. I feel kind of the same likewise with Half Blood Prince, and we'll get into that later. But I think if there's anything else, I mean, I'm looking at a couple other notes that I have here. Dumbledore, I don't know. He seems kind of weird here. He seems confused, doesn't know what's going on. And of course, we have the infamous line there, in which he yells to Harry if he put his name in the goblet. But I don't know. I really don't know about that line right there. So
You
anything
know, in
else on
fairness, I
Goblet?
think in fairness, I think that it's better in the movie because, especially if there's so much death in this tournament of children, yeah, it probably would make sense where he'd be like, "What on earth were you? Did you do this? Did you do this, you idiot?"
Yeah, and, let's see. I wanna see if I have any other notes on, Goblet before we do, order. So, yeah, I'll throw in a couple other different things that I feel like weren't
Ooh,
expanded
Raquel
upon.
Rodriguez is back.
The graveyard scene, which is kinda terrifying there, we already kinda talked about that, and there's kind of some horse and crux foreshadowings there in the book, kind of, with what he says. And, the ending, it feels kinda rushed and lighthearted there, like Hermione, who, as knowledgeable as she is, like, "Everything's gonna change now, isn't it?" And Harry's like, "Yeah." It's just like, Okay,
Yeah.
that's how we're ending the movie." So, yeah, I don't really know about that Goblet of Fire ending. I feel like it should have been more dark and have that parting of the ways that it has in the book between Dumbledore and the Ministry, because you're probably like, "Okay, the Ministry is, like, totally against this. Well, what kinda happened to lead to that?" I feel like that's kinda missing. So, Peter, any quick thoughts before we move on to order?
No, I guess the only downside to Goblet is it feels like kind of a weird pause. Like again, we moved the story at the very end, but for most of it, it's just a game basically. It
Yeah,
almost feels like a weird special more than so a story film.
yeah. Alright, let's get into the 5th book, the 5th movie of the series, Order of the Phoenix. And to kinda lead off this discussion, I remember us talking about it in the group chat and talking about Order of the Phoenix, and Rebecca kinda mentioning the aspect there, of course, of Harry being a little bit angsty with all this stuff going on and just being fully inside his head. You're kinda like, "Okay, this guy has some issues right now. He's just going off on anybody that just, like, it goes against him in any type of way." In some ways, I get that. You know, I would hate to have to, get be inside the head of that person too, you know? But I also kinda take a look at it as like, you know, we were all 15 at one point, and we probably all had this kinda tendency at one point or another, in which we were just absolutely like, You don't wanna be around us, you know? And you're just like, because at any moment you're gonna tee off on them and just kinda go off. So, I get that, but and I also get, that part, and that you take a look at Harry, that's a little bit of a drastic difference because we're not Harry, who has the hopes of the Wizarding World on his shoulders, who just saw Voldemort come back, who just saw somebody die, and he's not given the facts, he's not told anything, he's being left in the dark by even his own friends. And so it's easy to see why you don't like that, but it's also to understand, like, okay, um, I completely get why he feels this way because nobody is telling him anything, you know? And I feel like if he was told certain information in the books and in the movies, he wouldn't do what he does at the end. If he was just told, like, hey, here's what the plan is, here's what Voldemort's after, I feel like, okay, I'm told something, I know what's going on, and I'm good to go. Now the movies is a little bit different because you don't see as angry of a Harry. It's kind of a more lonely, sad, depressed kind of feeling where, just at this point, he sees all this stuff. It's just like, well, crap, I'm in this bad situation right here. I I'm at a loss here because I've seen all this stuff and I'm being kept in the dark. So it feels a little bit different from the book, and which I think that's probably a better change because again, there's probably a lot of people that don't like Order of the Phoenix Harry and just don't want to deal with that.
Real quick, Roman Reigns is coming into the building, our tribal chief. But yeah, also we got to remember this is these books are set in the mid late '90s, so Harry's definitely listening to some grunge in the his dorm. He's definitely blasting Nirvana. But yeah, it's a again can't comment on the book. Roman just did the signal. Oh yeah, this is one that it's funny. It starts off. It kind of started off in a where I was kind of like, oh, I'm probably not gonna like this one. And then as it goes on, it gets better and better. And then come the end, I'm like, oh, this was a sneaky little good movie all around. So, good beginning. We get introduced to the real villain here.
No.
What's her name? That's how much I hate her.
Dolores Umbridge.
Oh, Umbridge. Umbridge.
Yeah.
There we go. I couldn't think of the first name for some reason, so I had to go to the second. But yeah, very, very good villain in terms of just being completely unlikable from the get go. And also, I think I talked about this last time and how they kind of made everything a little generic when it came to houses, where it really just becomes the Gryffindor show, Slytherin's generic bad, and then Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw have literally nothing to do. Not really here. We kind of we were introduced to Luna here, so Ravenclaw gets a little more stuff to do. Hufflepuff, sorry, still got nothing. Unless that was Chow Hufflepuff, or was she Gryffindor?
No, she was Ravenclaw. I mean,
Okay,
you can't Cedric, I mean, he was Hufflepuff.
okay, so that's the closest we got to Batman, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one gives the children a lot more to do, but still kind of relegates Slytherin to the generic grunts.
Yeah, I mean, Umbridge, I think she's awful in both the movie and the books. I think, credit to the actress who pulled it off because you know how unlikable you have to be to where some people hate you more than like Voldemort? It- like it's crazy. Um and honestly, Umbridge is kind of I don't want to say realistic, but kind of realistic as to what somebody could potentially be. And you just have this divide with the Ministry of Magic and Dumbledore and everybody, and she's one of the key figures against them. In which they're
Right.
just like,
Oh, she's pure government.
yeah,
That's basically the commentary here. This is what governments do best: hide the problem, and then when it finally goes bad, it's like, okay, you were right, but we don't care.
I mean, yeah, this is the
Or
product
or
of
here
not
she's
really,
on their side.
yeah, I mean, this is the product of really not telling anybody about the sins of the past that will come back to haunt them in the future. Just like not telling anybody or what happened in that last Wizarding War and just being like, let's keep it taboo, hush hush, all that stuff. It's just like it hurts them in the future. And you have this in which it's just like kind of the same thing. You're trying to avoid it. You're trying to keep it, under wraps. In which Voldemort, I mean, he's like, well, cool. I mean, they're not working for me, not yet, but I mean, in essence, I mean, they're kind of letting me do my own thing and letting me just chill for a year and try to build up my forces. That honestly, the ministry freaking screwed up here because you let that happen. You let him just build up your forces where he's just able to like, I'm gonna go and talk to the giants. Let me go get the Dementors out of Azkaban because that's a great fit right there. It's just like it's terrible that they let it get to that point, and you just see like the ministry is just like so frustrating because guys, I mean, Dumbledore, when has he ever lied? I think it's just like they're threatened by the power that Dumbledore kind of has here. And that's honestly a funny thing because Dumbledore, that's one of his temptations, is power. That's why he wasn't Minister of Magic. But they just feel so threatened by like the idea of him kind of superseding what they want and what they say that they're just like, we're just gonna push and push and push back against you. And as they like to call it, Harry Plotter, which us as journalism guys, not bad. That's smart right there. That gets you to read the papers right there.
Right. It's funny, the people who should be doing something about it aren't, so we have to trust a bunch of high schoolers. It's basically British Red Dawn, the original.
I mean, exactly. You just have a bunch of kids that just like, you know what? We're not getting taught the things that we need to get taught here in this class. So we're just going to take it upon ourselves. I feel like Hermione in the book does a lot more of that than what she does in the movie. There's a lot more of that. She has a certain jinx on the sign up sheet in which if anybody snitches, you're getting jinxed pretty badly. Like I think somebody did and they got disfigured and with their face. So that shows like, hey, don't snitch. But I think also there's a way of communication, but it's just like how much she spearheaded that idea, in which it's not really so much so in the movie, even though there's a couple of moments. But I mean, yeah, where you just have these kids that are really having to take the burden of what the adults failed to do in the last War and having to lead in the second Wizarding War, in which they shouldn't have to. The adults should be on the front lines. Instead, it's all the kids because of the failures of the previous generation and of them just not being told anything. And honestly, everybody's kind of like Harry in this movie because they aren't being told a thing. They aren't being told like, you know, this is what happened in the last Wizarding War. They're just being kept in the dark, kind of like Harry. So there's a little bit of similarities there that I didn't really kind of think about until like prepping for this. So I mean, but yeah, this movie it is a little bit different because Harry is kind of angsty and Sirius is too. Gary Oldman is just fantastic as Sirius, and he's kind of being kept in the dark too. He's being kept under wraps because I mean, of course, he is still at the moment a felon on the run, as everybody believes. So it makes sense you keep him in hiding, but you can just tell more so in the books and the movies, just like how lonely he is, how much he wants to get out and help. And he's just like stuck there at Grimmauld Place, and he's stuck there with Creature, that disgruntled house elf right there. The anti Dobby. He's just like, screw all of you, curse all of you. I hope you all die, kind of basically like that. So, yeah, it's really kind of a film where you have two characters that are really lonely and they aren't being told anything. They're being kept in the dark, just like pretty much the whole Wizarding world. So, I mean, yeah, this film is it's pretty underrated. It's not my favorite of the movies, but it's up there. I think it's a really solid film, and yeah, it just makes you hate Umbridge so much, and just like what she does, and just the whole detention thing where the "I must not tell lies" being grafted onto the skin, which to be fair, that's become a really cool tattoo for Potter fans. But it's just like, man, that is demented, and that is torture, and that is really horrible for anybody in this world to do.
Yeah, it's just the British education system, especially if you ever listen to Pink Floyd's The Wall. It's commentary. But yeah, this is the Order of the Phoenix. I think the strongest asset it has going for it is we are officially in serious now. This is still a family film, but it's no longer family friendly, if that makes sense. It's still a blockbuster, but now we're taking it seriously. And well, here's the themes we're playing with now.
Yeah, you just have a lot of seriousness here in this film because you have this Azkaban breakout here that's in this film, which is really kind of dark. And you don't, there's a couple of things here that are kind of missing there because, of course, Bellatrix in there. Of course, she comes to the forefront and she is just as terrible too on the Death Eater side of things. But there are a couple of things, and there are a couple of things here with this particular film that I will point out are a little bit different, um, or a little bit questionable because when they fly off with the Order of the Phoenix, do Muggles see them when they fly by? It's just like they fly by this yacht. It's like, yeah, you think anybody's gonna see them? Nah, they'll be fine. We'll just obliviate them. But there's that. I think there's also a trip to St. Mungo's, the Wizarding Hospital, in which you really get to find out about Neville. I feel like Neville was a little bit shortchanged a little bit because this scene right here in particular is kind of his drive, his why as to why he's doing what he's doing from this book onward, and why he keeps on fighting, and why he turns into that leader that he becomes in Deathly Hallows. Is you see, you go to St. Mungo's, where you had the Weasley, Mr. Weasley being attacked, which is kind of played off here in the movie. It's just like, I'm back, you know. But they go up to the hospital and you see Neville's parents there, and he goes and visits them, and you just kind of see the, the shape that they're in, and just kind of like shows you like, okay, this is why Neville is doing what he's doing. And I think even the actor had mentioned that he wishes that scene had been in there because of what it means to Neville. But besides that, I mean, I love, Neville getting a little bit more shine in here and just being able to like show like his confidence is quickly kind of growing. So there's that. I think there's a couple other things and how, Snape and that memory with his dad bullying him, in which Harry finds out his dad's a bully. You know, he's had this idea of like, oh no, my dad's been good this whole time. It's like, no, he bullied Snape. There's a reason why Snape hates him, and it's because he's been a big time bully against him at school. And in the books, it's a little bit different because it's in the pensieve instead of just Protego. And so Harry's kind of being invasive here, which probably not the best thing against Snape, somebody who hates you. But you take a look at his this memory here, and you just see how much you know, the Snape and James dynamic played out. And you miss a little bit of Harry's mom because I think in the book she was in the memory there too. And the title is called Snape's Worst Memory, but because we got spoilers here. The reason why it's called after a reread is because he called Harry's mom Lily a mudblood, who was about the best friend that he had at Hogwarts, and you see why that's his worst memory. So there's a couple other things, but yeah, you mentioned Luna. Um, man, is she a joy. In the book, she's a joy. In the movie, she's a joy. Honestly, you could get some vibes of her and Harry being like, hey, maybe this could be a thing. But I mean, she is just such a joy coming in as a new character. We have all these new characters and they're all bad, but we have this one character that outshines them all and just is really fun.
And truthfully, that in the books, this is a character who is just introduced at this book to it, right? Just out of the blue, Ron's like, "Yeah, here's Luna. Have fun, kids.
I
She's gonna
think
treat Dobby really good in a couple films."
Well, I think, in Goblet, it's kind of mentioned that the Lovegoods live not too far away from the Weasleys.
Hmm,
So, but you don't know that, there's a kid there. Um,
right.
but yeah, really full on, you get her in this movie, in this book from here on out, and she's so much fun. She really is. I can't find another way to describe her. She's just so much fun, and I really like that connection she has with Harry, and especially with the Thestrals, which honestly, good design from them because that could have gone wrong. But I really love the design of the Thestrals right there and just how that goes, and just kind of like Harry kind of dealing with and trying to process his grief and his loneliness right there. So I feel like she brings out that connection, which I feel like is needed to kind of, give Harry a little bit of realization here.
Yeah, and then of course, as this all goes on, we do get to the part where we have the fall part. The army of Dumbledore is found out, but because Voldemort makes himself known, we can, set the film in motion where Umbridge gets well, not cast out. We we feed her to the giants or the trolls.
Yeah, I will tell you, there's a couple stuff in there. The Weasleys exit and just making a fool out of her with the fireworks. Um, just what a glorious exit by the
Oh,
twins there. But yeah, that whole scene right there, and kind of leading up, and Hermione is great in the book because before they go and try to rescue Sirius, Hermione's like, think carefully. Why are you seeing this? Because you're trying to learn occlumency and trying to okay, there we go. Bad Tennessee play. But you have occlumency there, and Harry's like, no, I'm not gonna learn it. And because of the whole Snape, it has a fallout there. So it's just like, she questions him like, you shouldn't be seeing this. You should have worked on occlumency and trying to shut your mind from Voldemort. So I feel like then you have that moment with Umbridge in the forest, in which I mean, not great, to try to make the centaurs do the dirty work, I guess.
Mm.
Right there, but he had this great line from Harry. He's like, "I must not tell lies," and that's not in the book. But I tell you what, talk about a funny action line right there. It's like, yeah, there we go, there we go. You just love to see it. You love to see her get taken off by the centaurs there. But yeah, then you have the duel at the Ministry, which the Ministry looks really super cool here in the movies. It really does.
And it's about to be made IRL at the new Universal Park,
Oh man,
which I
that's
look
gonna
forward
be
to seeing next
something.
summer.
That's gonna be
But yeah,
something.
this was a very good scene when you get basically the OG Order of the Phoenix and the Army of Dumbledore kind of join for almost basically mega powers it join forces to get the to find the prophecy. And then here comes Big Bad himself, and now we get Queen Bellatrix up in here, and in kind of a shock to me, Sirius dies.
Yeah. So in that battle in the books, it's a little bit different. It's more nuanced there. There's a lot more stuff going on there in the Ministry. There's all these different rooms are going in. They're battling all those Death Eaters. And all that is not there at the end. So you really kind of miss that. But yeah, Sirius dying. Um, in the I kind of don't like how it is in the movies. In the movies, he gets hit by the killing curse, in which like, okay, he should be automatically dead.
Mhm.
But he's just kind of like he just stands there and then falls back into the veil, which I'm like, okay, everything we know about the killing curse is he should have immediately died right then and there. In the books, I believe, I don't know what it is. I think it may be by a stunner, and then that causes him to fall back in the veil, and that's how he dies. So I think that I really like how it's done there, and because it's kind of weird to have that moment where it's just like, oh, I'm hit by the killing curse. I'm just going to stand here for a minute because I shouldn't have I shouldn't have stood here, but I don't know. But yeah, the Sirius dying was a big time moment here, and seeing what happens with Harry, and just kind of I love that scene there, in which it's just kind of like you drown out all the sound, and he just looks at Bellatrix and he has bloodlust in his eyes, and he's going after her. It's like he casts an unforgivable curse. He casts Crucio, and it's just like, oh, we just out here using unforgivables now, aren't we? Um, but I mean, yeah, I think I really kind of don't like that part at the end. The Dumbledore Voldemort duel, though,
Oh,
oh man, it is amazing. It's really just amazing because they are casting stuff that, I mean, you do that against any other person, they're probably dead. They're probably not making it out alive. They're probably getting maimed. But it's just because these two are so powerful, they're going tack for tack with each other. And also, Dumbledore's got to keep an eye on Harry because he wants to get involved. It's like, no, 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 no. I got this. I'm 1v1 this guy. We don't worry about this. Um,
not part of the plan, kid.
yeah, it's not part of the plan in which I haven't told you everything. But I mean, yeah, that duel was just so amazing. You have the Hall of Prophecies there too, as well, in which you see all them falling down, in which I feel like, the Hall of Prophecies, I feel like everybody heard the prophecy there for Harry right there, and not just Harry. So I was like, well, now you guys know he's the chosen one. So
Right.
so whoops. But the Hall of Prophecies did look cool. I did love seeing them battle all the Death Eaters, and just Harry just and Neville being like, "No, we're clapping back against you, Lucius and Bellatrix. Like we're gonna say Voldemort's name and all that stuff." So yeah, I really feel like honestly with Goblet in this film, it feels like and the way I've heard it, it's kind of like a Empire Strikes Back, Infinity War type of ending here because it feels like nobody wins here in these scenarios. It feels like just massive L's
Right.
because you've had all this stuff go down. You've got Voldemort now being revealed out in the open, which that's terrifying. You've had people die here at the end. It's just like those types of scenarios there, which is just it has that type of ending, and you get another one here with Sirius dying. But I mean, yeah, I do feel like this one it is an underrated movie out of all the movies. I feel like it's not going to land at the top of a lot of people's list, but it's a good adaptation with still some stuff missing because of the choices that have been made in previous films. But it's still a really solid film from what they did. A really solid film leading into Half Blood Prince.
And yet, the good thing about the ending is, yeah, pretty much Voldemort survives. Everyone knows about him, but he didn't get what he wanted. But now we also know, like, hey, reason I wasn't talking to you, obviously Dumbledore and Harry. Reason I wasn't talking to you is because, yeah, I don't know how to tell you this, but neither both of you have one of you has to die. So, LOL, go to bed.
Which I feel I kind of hate that that's all it comes to at that part because there's a whole lot more there. Whereas like Dumbledore doesn't tell Harry everything. I mean, when does he tell Harry everything? It's just kind of like I'm not going to tell you anything, but he tells him a lot of things here and kind of tells him about, talks about the prophecy, talks about that scenario, talks about the Voldemort connection there, talks about Lily's sacrifice. Like, I think Dumbledore is going through the years and like saying what Harry has gone through from his first year on is like, you keep on proving yourself time and time again. I find it each and every year tougher to keep these things secret and not tell you. So I feel like that I wish there would have been more there and kind of just in essence being a whole lot more than what we get, which is just like, neither can live while the other survives, which means like I gotta kill him, right? Like, yeah, there you go. I'm gonna try to help you, but yeah, that's it, kid. But that's pretty much it. So there's a couple things at the end that I kind of wish were in there, kind of wish they didn't do, but I do like how it ends. It ends a little bit hopeful there at the end, because they got something worth fighting for, in which I don't know how I haven't made a mention of this, but if you haven't yet, watch Screen Rant's Harry Potter pitch meetings. They're an absolute joy. They're absolute joy. And I think one thing he says there when it gets to this part is like, oh, there's one thing that we have. And one of the guys is like, noses compared to Voldemort because he doesn't have a nose. It's like, nah, we got each other. It's like, oh, but we still have noses though. But yeah, I kind of feel like, with this film, it's a solid ending, a little bit uplifting there at the end, but it's still a Empire Strikes Back, Infinity War type of feels like crap. We are in a dark place. We got people dying. We got the Dark Lord coming back. People are unprepared that he's back, and they're just like on a swivel unless they've been on Harry's side from the get go, in which they've all been prepared. So it feels like everything is kind of leading up into these last two books and last three movies.
Yeah, I think with that we can, unless there's anything else, we can move on to HBP. Half-Blood Prince. We start with even more casual terrorism by the Death Eaters, this time in the world of the Muggles, which begs the question, what would happen if the real world and the magic went to war? But we don't answer that here. Probably a nuke. But anyway, Voldemort's attacking. Uh, his daddy's in Azkaban, so he takes a little stupid POS Drago and says, hey, I need you to carry out a secret mission for me. And then Draco's mom goes to Severus, is like, I need you to make one of these unbreakable vows, and you gotta do whatever he needs.
Yeah, Half Blood Prince. I mentioned this earlier. It kind of has that chapter there at the beginning, but also has that other chapter with uh Fudge and the Muggle Prime Minister and them talking, and it really is kind of
Oh
a
boy, the
uh-oh,
Rock is here.
uh-oh,
The Rock is at Backlash.
uh-oh. So yeah, honestly, Half Blood Prince, if you're new to the Potterverse, that first chapter is good because it kind of does get you up to speed on everything that's kind of happened here. Short synopsis on what's happened here with the minister visiting the Muggle Prime Minister. But yeah, the first part of this movie. And honestly, it's more of a romantic comedy, I think we can say. And it's more that
Yeah.
type of feel here. Even though you did mention like, hey, it opens up with terrorism here at the start of it. It's a romantic comedy, I feel like at its core, with a dark beginning and a dark ending, with how this film ends. So it's also again, it's I feel like I want to see what this and Goblet look like in TV form because I think they would be a whole lot better in TV formats just because of the depth and the density of both those books and what they have in it. Like this book, it goes a little bit into it, but it goes into the backstory of Voldemort, how to make a villain. And we only get to see a couple memories there. And I think there's one that's, of course, Dumbledore visiting Tom at his orphanage, in which you read that in the book, it is it's kinda chilling because in that meeting, he's already like, he's showing tendencies of control, domination, powers, like, "I want people to tell the truth, and, like, if you tell a lie, I'm gonna know, I'm gonna be angry at you." So it already showed those tendencies. So well, I guess we'll get into that a little bit later, but the start of this movie, like you said, you got the Death Eaters, and you got Fenrir Greyback, who's half man, half wolf, is kind of a terrorist in his own right because werewolf wants to bite people and turn people into werewolves. So you have that at the beginning, and then you have Harry trying to riz up somebody at a at a diner. It looks like it's working, and the Dumbledore's like, "Nah, come with me. We got to go on this little mission here."
Yep. I have to see you witness my death.
Yeah, so it starts off like that, and I do feel like with this movie, Gambon, we talked about him a little bit in part one. I still don't know because there are a couple moments where he's like, it doesn't feel like Dumbledore, that twinkle in the eye, that kind of like, you know, there's a couple of lines in here where I think he says, "Do as I say," and which I feel like I don't know if Dumbledore would say that. And also, at the end of the tower, at the astronomy tower, it's a little bit different because in the book, Dumbledore immobilizes him, so Harry can't do anything. In the movie, Harry is just there. He's watching all this go down, in which, I feel like we know Harry would go in and try to save the day. He has a saving people thing. So
Right.
I don't know. And then you get introduced to Slughorn, which, hey, listen, I feel like you and I are on the same page with this. Late in our career and late in our education, we all want an easy grader, right? We all want an easy
Right.
grader that's just kind of chill, that you vibe with. And Slughorn's that type of guy. Is like, oh, hey, what was this? Oh, nice, food, excellent. You get an A on your homework. Don't bother doing it. 10 points to Gryffindor. He's that type of teacher. I feel like that's a type of teacher. Late in education, I think that's the type of teacher we all kind of want. We all want a Slughorn.
Basically, the teacher we wanted for those UI classes we had to take.
Oh, boy, did we. Man, did we. Yeah, we absolutely did, definitely needed them. But yeah, Slughorn, of course, our introduction is him as a recliner. And you also have that nice little bit of magic where they just kind of rearrange the room, which that's really cool. That's where you really love kind of see the magic, how that plays out. Um, but yeah, you see that whole scene with Snape too, and the unbreakable vows, like, oh, well, what's going on here? And it's like Snape, you know, on the bad side. And I feel like, I feel like, he's fooling either Voldemort or Dumbledore, which in itself, if you're fooling one of them, it is a task because of just how great wizards they are. And yes, I call Voldemort a great wizard and a powerful wizard because he is one. And he's an
Right. Just
accomplished occupant, and like he can read people's minds. And so Snape is playing all the cards here very riskily because at any moment, don't Voldemort can look at his mind, find out, oh, this guy's a double agent, Avada Kedavra. That's the end of Snape. So it kind of gives off in this vibe in this scene, like he is fooling one of these guys. He's fooling either Dumbledore or Voldemort. And it's not easy to fool either of those guys because those are some immensely powerful wizards in that day and age. But yeah, you get the unbreakable vow, in which it just goes to show how the links that Snape will kind of go to. And I feel like at this point, Snape kind of knew that where it was all leading up to. I think he was told what was going to happen at the end. So I feel like there's some very deliberate decisions that he makes, especially in that part of the scene. But yeah, we have the Harry going to the Weasleys and going to Hogwarts. In the book, I feel. Let me ask you this: did it feel like in the movie? Did it feel like the whole Harry Ginny thing just kind of like came out of nowhere to you?
Oh, big time. Because they set up Chow in the previous film, even though there's some tension after the armies found out, but they realized, oh, she was getting tortured. So I was like, oh, okay, they'll continue that. Because I mean, realistically, I don't. Ginny didn't do anything between the two films other than between her introduction in Sorcerer. So I was just like, oh yeah, she exists, just kind of a background character. And now it's like, oh, here's a relationship. Like, okay, it's like Harry, he's your best friend. That's his sister.
Yeah. I mean, Harry has that
Breaking a
inner
code,
monologue in the books too, where it's just like he just has that constant internal debate. It's like, but she's Ron's sister, you know.
right?
In the books, it is very much clear, like, okay, and there's kind of subtle notices in Goblet and Order where he's kind of like, you're in Harry's head and you read these notices of Ginny is like, the only reason you would notice somebody is if you're just like, you're looking at them and you're like, you have an interest on them, especially if it's, look relationship wise. And so
Mhm.
you kind of like, okay, there's some seeds planted in here. We know Jenny had a crush early on, but now it feels like it's a little bit different. She's kind of moved on from it. And then here in the movies, it's just kind of like, oh, here it is. We got to have it. But I don't know. I feel like they could have done a little bit better job as far as that and trying to make sure like it's not just like bam, here it is. Like, oh, and you're just completely caught off guard by it. I feel like they could have done that better. Book Ginny is a whole lot cooler and a whole lot better. She's awesome. She dunks on Ron in this book a couple times, where it's just like, holy crap! Just like call it off. Like no, throw in the towel. It's like Rocky Four right there. It's just like throw the towel. It's just like calm down. But she's a whole lot better, I think, in the books than in the movies. But yeah, as far as the other aspects of this movie, well, what do you think about it as far as the storytelling aspect of it, of you getting to find out more about Voldemort? Do you wish you kind of found? Did you wish you could have found out more about him? Because the books kind of did a complete download on him and why he is the way he is. So how do you feel about that aspect of it?
This one felt very for pretty much once they're off the train. Pretty much the moment Luna rescues Harry from Draco's little spell on the train, it just feels like a meandering. Like, okay, there's a mystery going on here. That's literally this film, but what's the point? And then it's really at the very end when it's the Snape reveal. Yeah, I think it would have helped a little more, especially when you start talking about Horcruxes and all that jazz. It's the only thing we get in his past is Recliner Man, Slughorn, basically saying, yeah, I gave him the idea and he took it the whole 9 yards with seven or eight of these Horcruxes.
Yeah, you mentioned the Horcruxes. I feel like that's something that wasn't done as much here in the movies, which I feel like that's a big thing going forward. That's a big thing in the next couple movies, and it's just like, oh
Hell,
yeah, here they
Deathly
are,
Hallows,
and
Deathly Hallows Part One, we just get one of them.
yeah, and see, like in the movies, I feel like Dumbledore's like, we need to find out what exactly he did, but I feel like in the books, he knows what he did. He's just trying to figure out the mystery of it. Like, okay, what exactly did he do? How many did he make? You know, I feel like, that it's a whole lot better. I think that aspect in the books compared to what they did. I also think, the book and the movie, I'll say one thing they did really well. I think they made you feel for Draco. It really kind of showed him as like he's leveled up. And then at the end there, you really feel bad for him at the position that he's been in. And you can kind of see there at the end at the towers, like, nah, I don't want this. Like, sure, like Voldemort is threatening to kill me and my family, but it's like he's lowering his wand. Like, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to be there. It feels like, he's been, it's the whole nature versus nurture type of thing, with how he was brought up by his family, and all that. So I feel like he's kind of leveled up. A couple other uh, different things here. Of course, you have the whole romance aspect of it, and that was a whole lot of fun. And I think Tennessee's about to score a touchdown here. Let's see. Okay, never mind. He got stopped at the 3 or 4. So there we go. Uh but yeah, I think this part it is fun, but it's also in the books. You do find out a whole lot more about everything going on here. It's in the 6th year now. It's in the home stretch of the final year of their education. Um I really like that moment there where Ron and Harry are just kind of goofing off watching the first years. Like, you look at these guys. Remember when we were these little guys here running around? And McGonagall's like, "Nah, nah, come over here." It's like we're gonna get you in classes in which um Harry wants to be an Auror, in which I didn't even touch on this on Goblet, but there's a moment in the books where Moody, actually, Barty Crouch Jr. is like, Potter, you would make a very good Auror, and that's what he ends up doing. So again, the Dark Lord, his servant, giving Harry advice, career advice, and saying like, "Hey, I'm going to make you a better wizard and give you a career suggestions." Like, oh, that gives you the precise tools to take my master down. So I really like that moment. Just like the comedy and romantic stuff, I feel like let me ask you this: how did you like the romantic comedy kind of aspect to this film?
Felt a little off, to be completely honest, with the tone you're going for, and you're trying to make it super serious. Like we the end is on the horizon, and the last film clearly pushed us into, like, okay, we're taking it seriously now. So to have this kind of breaks it a little bit, but I kind of appreciate from the idea. It's like, okay, they still are trying to live their lives, even though, Voldemort is known now. Like, there's no secret anymore. There's no, don't say the name, yada yada.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the big surprises, and Tennessee just scored a touchdown right there. So there we go.
Seven
Timestamp
three.
for Tennessee touchdown. um, one of my favorite parts in the book, and I'll tell you what, oh man, I wish it was in the movies, because if it was in the movies, it would have got the biggest laugh, particularly out of me. But of course, Snape becomes the defense against the dark arts teacher, and Harry's just kind of like, I hate this. And the ironic part is he's actually getting taught by Snape with the Half Blood Prince's book with all those little notes. So I love kind of that aspect of him resisting Snape's teaching, but also accepting some of it, in different ways that he doesn't yet know until the end there. But in this particular section here, it's so funny because they're trying to learn nonverbal spells. Um, and Harry blasts Snape back at one point on accident, and Snape's like, "Hey, do you remember me saying like, hey, we're practicing nonverbal spells here, Potter?" And Harry's like, "Yeah," and Snape is like, "Yes, sir." And Harry, just the ultimate sass right here. No, there's no need to call me sir, Professor. So it's just like, it's like, man, like, Harry, you know what's about to happen. You're about to land in detention.
Safe just sees James for a second, just like goes to strangle him.
It just
It's
looks
like
at
not
his
a
eyes like, I remember what I'm doing this for. I can't do it.
beat his face in a little bit.
Yeah, just maybe
Again,
jinx them a little
hey,
bit.
it's the British school system. Child abuse is a thing there.
Yeah, I mean, we
I
know how
presume.
Hogwarts is.
Right. Kids are dying. Again, the only thing I know about the British school system is Pink Floyd's The Wall, so maybe it's changed. Probably not.
Yeah, so listen, I think with this film, yeah, you had the romantic comedy. I feel like, yeah, it feels kind of, it does feel kind of off because you have all this other stuff. I feel like you have all this other stuff with the download of Voldemort and the Horcruxes, which I kind of feel like it does take a little bit of a back seat to a lot of this romantic comedy stuff, which, okay, fine. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. You kind of see the tensions there, but I'll tell you, I feel like having all that stuff would have really helped in understanding Voldemort. Like reading about it in the books, you really get an idea. And, in the books, Ron is like, I don't know why you need to know all this stuff about Voldemort. What help is it going to do you? And then Hermione, being the reason that they're not dead, in all honesty, keeping them alive, is like, it helps to know about your enemy, knows your and know their weaknesses, and that's exactly what it does, and kind of like what links Voldemort went to. Like this man was out here killing at like 16, the age they are now, in at that point in the story. So it's just like, yeah, Ron, come on. It helps to understand the most evil wizard of all time. What are you going to do? Just kind of like, play it by ear? No, you got to learn about your enemy.
Ron's just gonna get a gun. He's gonna go to the Muggle world and be like, "Oh, this is how they would fight him."
It's like, oh, this is very effective.
Should have done this from the get go.
Oh man. But yeah, I feel like, having the
He,
memories in
he he
there,
goes to he goes to American Hogwarts.
which I mean, it's a different name, but there is one. So, I mean, he goes there, it's like, wow, you guys do things way differently here. Things are way different over here. Um, yeah, no, I just feel like having the memories there. I feel like the romantic comedy, while it is fun at times, I would have liked to seen that more play out because I guess as a book reader, you have ideas play out in your head of like what things will look like, how things will happen, and just not to have that. I feel like in TV format, again, I can't say this enough, but in TV format, you will really learn a whole lot about Voldemort than you will by seeing some of the stuff in this film. But I will tell you, the one line that does pop up in the book is kind of that line of like, did you know that he was going to be what he was then? And Dumbledore was like, no. And like, if I hadn't, I'd, it's kind of like a baby, go back and kill baby, who, type of thing here in the real world. You know who I'm getting at, right? Um, it kind of would fall into that line. It's like, why not just go back in time and just like, take care of them that way, you know? But I feel like I would have loved to have the memories here and just love kind of like you really kind of understand the gist of who Voldemort is, why he is the way he is, how he got to this point. It's just like, what is his motivations? And there's this great part in the book in which I would love it because it talks about the prophecy. Because I feel like all these great fantasy stories, they have these things with prophecy and choice and destiny, which that's a lot of what this story is about choice. And Dumbledore kind of gives him the rundown. It's like, listen, even if it wasn't your destiny, you would still go and try to find ways to go and take Voldemort down. And Dumbledore has to beat that through Harry's head. Not literally, he doesn't beat him, but he has to literally get it through his thick skull. That's the case. But a couple other things. Weasley Wizard Wheezes, the joke shop. Um, that's fun. That looked like a fun set.
Oh, especially with Diagon Alley needing it, with Diagon Alley looking like Detroit.
Man, Detroit taking a huge L right there. I mean, yeah, so you have the joke shop. That's cool to see how that happens. Just to see all that stuff. Um, I'm also just kind of like looking through my notes, see what else I want to, talk about. Um, Sticking with the Weasleys here, that scene at Christmas where they're at the burrow and it burns down. Peter, that does not happen at all in the books. I don't know why they burned the burrow down. I don't know why. And also, it's just like they're standing there. They can do magic. They can, knock that out in a jiffy. So I was like, okay, why are you burning down the burrow, guys? Come on.
Yeah. Again, especially at that point, the whole Voldemort plot's kind of a beginning and end kind of thing. So I just presume that there's something in the middle. But
Yeah,
again, it's like you, just double down on the mystery and just get it over with.
yeah. I just feel like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They can do magic. They can just like get that taken care of right away. Instead, they're just like staring at it. It's like, oh no, the horrors. Like, you guys are all freaking wizards. You can take care of this. Just don't just stand there. Um, so I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a negative there. I will also say one thing that I think is also, I think, a really compelling chapter because even though Voldemort is not in the book and not in the movie, you can really kind of feel him all around you. Just has this presence, especially in the cave, because it feels like you're invading a personal space of his, a space that he probably is the only one that knows about it. It's probably, to be real, his longest lasting relationship. He doesn't care about people, but that goes back to when he was a kid. Um, and so just reading that scene in the book and just seeing it in the movie, it just feels like you should not be here. This is a place where everything is dark and dreary. I feel like anything bad can happen at any given moment. And that's what happens here because you got Dumbledore drinking the potion there. It's meant to do that. And it's just like, is this how we're going to lose Dumbledore? It's like, no, no, no. Hold on. Give that a few pages, you know? And so it's just like, oh, wow, this is terrifying. And then you get the Inferi, which, oh man, like you don't really know what they are in the movie. In the book, they kind of say what they are. They're like reanimated corpses. I don't know if they're zombies per se. They may be more like White Walkers from Game of Thrones, which I mean you would know about, since you're watching Game of Thrones.
Only on season 3, still behind.
Well,
But
I
I did
mean,
finish Sopranos.
now okay, well, fair enough. But yeah, the Inferi are really kind of creepy because essentially it's all of Voldemort's victims down there. Um, and a lot of he's killed homeless muggles, wizards that he's killed, and just like a whole group of army of Inferi down there that's just really terrifying. And it's just like they're pulling Harry down. It's just like I think they did a pretty good job with designing them, just like making them terrifying. It's just like, ugh,
And just makes Voldemort look good and evil. It's pretty hardcore to just kill people and basically like, okay, now you're my soldier for life. But this guy is ruthless.
yeah. I mean, yeah, he really is. It's just like in the way I'll get on this part and definitely Hallows. I'll save it here. I was going to talk about it here, but I'll save it. But I mean, yeah, and then you get Dumbledore having that cool little action there with the fire there, where he just looks like a complete boss, and it's just like, okay, this is why some people consider this guy to be the best sorcerer in the world, is because he's able to do that type of crap right there. And then you have them going back to Hogwarts, and it's just like in the books, they see the dark mark there. It hasn't been cast yet in the movies, but they see the dark mark there. They rush to it. You have all the events happening with Draco, and then you get the whole Snape thing. And then it's just like, you really don't get what's happening there until after Deathly Hallows and what you've come to learn, in which the Severus pleas is not so just like, and it's not a plea for don't kill me. It's just a plea for like, please just end it. You know, come through on our agreement. So yeah, I feel like not immobilizing Harry there, not great, and also the Half Blood Prince stuff. finding that out at the end, which I feel like that isn't really done a whole lot either. And that's the title of the movie here. And you have Harry hitting him with that Sectum Sempra spell, in which he almost kills Draco. And Snape knows is like, okay, I know exactly what type of spell you threw here. It's like, oh, you dare to try to use my own spells against me? No, I'm just gonna throw these back at you. It's like, I'm the Half Blood Prince. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? The ending, though, it feels like the ending, honestly, with all of these, besides maybe order a little bit, is kind of abrupt because I feel like in Half Blood Prince, I feel like you would have loved to see the Dumbledore funeral because of the type of guy that he is, right? And just see what they kind of do for him. And it's not there. It's just like Dumbledore dies, and here we are. And we're talking about a fake Horcrux. And it's just like there's no funeral here. And I feel like
And
you
hair
really missed
and
that.
yeah, basically just ends with the trio like, okay, we're dropping out. We're gonna go kill this guy, which cool in itself, but you had yeah, again, Dumbledore's been the major minor character in every single film, and he bites the big one. And again,
Yeah.
the reveal of why Snape kills him is going to be in the next film, but we don't know that. So
Yeah.
from the perspective just the book reader of the film, it's like, oh, this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. It's a completely big shock. It's another L at the end of these movies here that we've been talking about. It's just like, oh crap, we're at a loss here. And I really feel like that funeral scene because in that scene, you have a lot of Harry's introspection of, as one of the quotes in there, the last and greatest of his protectors has left him. And so that really thrusts Harry into the forefront of that role in which, okay, there's nobody there left to protect him. This war is fully on his shoulders here. He's the face of it. And he's got that burden now to add to what all else he has, especially with the Horcrux, in which I feel like that scene, I feel like, like, yeah, that we'll go with you. It's like, of course we will, we'll be there. So I feel like there wouldn't be any doubt there. It kind of feels like you think you're going to do this without us, but I don't know. I feel like having the funeral there at the end. And also, there's a mini battle there in the Half Blood Prince books. It's not Battle of Hogwarts level, which duh, we'll get into that next pod, but there's a little battle there in which there's some losses there in which Harry gives them some Felix Felicis, in which if that doesn't happen, then his classmates die if they don't take it. And Bill, which we don't have any of the extra Weasley twins. I bet you didn't know that. There's more Weasley brothers. There's more of them. There's way
Ugh.
more of them. There's like of course there's Percy who we've seen, Bill who we don't get into Deathly Hallows, and then there's the older brother Charlie that's doesn't work with the dragons. So it's just like, man, come on, let's get some of the some other Weasleys in here. I feel like that kind of hurts in these films, like not as much of the Weasleys, I feel like. But yeah, Bill gets scarred
No one,
by Greyback there at the final battle.
no one, no wonder Papa Weasley can't is low on money.
Well, I mean, Harry, who's got a lot of gold in his bank, could help the Weasleys.
He's too stupid to do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna argue with you there. It's just like, hey man, come on. You know that Ron keeps on saying how poor they are. It's like, help them out. They've been a family to you. Literally. So I was like, yeah, but
You live with them.
yeah, and then we have this, Horcrux hunt, and okay, Tennessee's about to score here, and we're about to wrap up here. So I guess let's see, third quarter. So all right. But yeah, I feel like, the book, this and Goblet are two towering achievements of books. And I wish they could have been a little bit better movies, but there are fun aspects to both of them. There are fun aspects of both Half-Blood Prince and Goblet, but I just wish it would have been a little bit different. But Peter, we got Deathly Hallows coming up, which is a two-parter, but it's only the one book. So it's It's gonna be weird. You got two movies and you got the one book that we're gonna have to talk about on part three next time, and I'm really
Well,
excited.
well, obviously we'll discuss legacy, but the big thing is we'll sort me into a house. We'll find one of those
Yeah, we will.
who knows, maybe it's the BuzzFeed version, or there's like a Harry Potter fan set that's like in depth, right?
Yeah, Pottermore. You can probably just
Okay.
make an account there, and you do a little test, and yeah, I'm really excited. Hmm, I don't know where you land. I really don't.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think. Slytherin. mm,
Chaos, yes.
well, also just that self-preservation type of ambition, that Slytherins have, and also not all Slytherins are bad. I mean, like Slughorn, I think is one. Draco in the end comes through, even though he does some despicable things. Snape, likewise, and he's a kind of a morally gray character because he does some bad things too, but has some good tendencies. He wants to be on that side of light. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm really curious to see which house you'll land in and what they'll give you. I really don't know, man. Yeah, that should be a fun one to find that out. And also, I guess we can talk about the leg, and we'll talk about the legacy, and we'll talk about the whole TV aspect of it because that is coming. That is coming for sure. That is 100% for certain that that's coming. So we'll talk about that and more. It should be another exciting pod. I'm ready to talk about Deathly Hallows and talk about what happens there, especially in part two. I do love part one. I think it is one of my favorite movies out of the bunch to step on those toes. But I also really love part two. And I really love, some of the chapters that are involved in part two in the book because those are when you get the full download of the whole story in general, of like what's been kind of going on here with Snape, with Dumbledore, what happened when Harry was almost killed by Voldemort that night. So I'm really excited to talk about that. So Peter, that's another one in the books. 6 movies in, we got 2 more to go, another book to go, and I can't wait for next time. I'm really excited to see which house you'll land in.
Hey, and I think we should be able to get that to the people in about a month because you and me got to head to Matt Rebecca's wedding. I'll be out of town the next week, so I think early November is probably when we can do that.
Yeah, so and keep that in mind, everybody. Keep that locked in. Yeah, and you mentioned the wedding. Really excited about that. We're gonna be seeing each other for the first time in quite a while there in a couple weeks. It's gonna be kind of weird because we're so used to seeing each other through a screen the last few years. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. And we'll do that pod here in a few weeks and wrap that series up and see which house Peter lands in. We'll see if he's Gryffindor or Hufflepuff or whether he's in Slytherin or Ravenclaw. So tune in for that one,
It'll
everybody. But that'll do it for this edition of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, be sure to go check us out where you guys get your podcasts. Do all the YouTube things as well. We'll have this pod up on YouTube as well as part one, so you don't want to miss that. But that'll do it for us here, everybody. Check in for part three here in a few weeks. Until then, we will talk to you next time.